Welcome to episode 0 of Resilience and Hope, the Neglected Tropical Diseases podcast, an initiative of DAO's West African Regional Office. Today, we delve into the story of social reclassification villages in Senegal. In this first part, we'll explore the origins of these villages, the reasons for their creation, their distribution across the country, and the reactions they have provoked. To answer these questions, we called on Mr. Mohamed Cissé, Country Director of DAO Senegal, a German NGO fighting leprosy, tuberculosis, and neglected tropical diseases.
Faire remarquer que de l'époque coloniale jusque vers les années 1960,
From colonial times until the 1960s, before independence, leprosy was considered incurable, and the only means of prevention was to isolate patients. It should be noted that as early as 1878 and 1888, the first lazaria in Senegal were built in Dakar and Saint Louis. When teaching, you may come across a location now as Rue de Mais, which existed between 1916 and 1951, in line with the spirit of social protection and disease prevention. This lazario was gradually transformed into leprosy clinics, now as malaria at the time. Just before and after independence. In 1965, following Independence Law 76-65 of March 4 officially transformed the leprosaria into treatment centers from enseignants. Named after enseignants, the physician who discovered the leprosy bacillus were the first to understand the disease past. At the time, people with leprosy was after referred to as lepers. The law of 1965, which had transformed the lazaria into leprosaria, was revised by the law of March 25, 1966, thus initiating an evolution towards what are now known as social reclassification villages. This conceptual change made it possible to humanize patient care, which is now governed by implementing this transition from the 12 leprosaria at the time to today's 9 social rehabilitation villages.
One of these villages is Djibelar, located in the south of Senegal, more precisely in the Ziguinchor region. The history of this virus is told to us by Moussa Faye, a septuagenarian and former leprosy sufferer who is now the village chief.
In the past, in the event of illness, access to certain villages for treatment required specific documents, while doctors provided the treatment. In the Ziguinchor region of Senegal, which had 11 villages, the events in Casamance led to the disappearance of 2 villages, Babadinke and Jifanor. Their inhabitants found refuge in other villages such as Djibelar and Turbi. Today, only 9 villages remain on the map. At the time, these villages were created to group together the sick, reflecting a period when understanding of the disease was limited and isolation of the sick was commonplace.
Located in the coastal department of Mbour, Malem is one of Senegal's largest villages. Welcoming its first inhabitant in 1955, Hassan Kadam was one of the first 122 occupants. He tells us about the story.
Vous savez, Bali, c'est un village de reclassement en ce moment où je vous parle.
You know, Bali is a reclassification village till now, but it has a story. Bali was occupied in 1955, specifically on the night of June 13 to 14, 1955. At the time, colonizers came to shelter in Bali. They had left Kontase, a small hamlet attached to the Trypanosomiasis screening station. The colonizers were conducting small-scale pandemic screenings there. Eventually, they realized that the number of cases was increasing since leprosy was accused of being contagious. They needed to find a way to separate the patients with leprosy from those with trypanosomiasis, fearing that the former would infect the latter. That is how things unfold.
Located in the center of the country, the Kutal Malik Ndiaye reclassification village is in the Kaolack region. A native of the village and the son of former leprosy sufferers, Abdoulaye Ndiaye tells us about the history of the VRS, of which he is the head.
En 1952 février, nous sommes 18 personnes.
In February 1942, our village emerged with just 18 brave Peruvians, 1 woman, and 17 men, of who we are direct descendants. In those days, entering the village was a challenge in itself. The remains of the first houses bear witness to our modest beginnings, and this same remains sheltered us to this day. Over the years, the village grew and we formed our own families. Most of us are sons and daughters of lepers. Some of us come with our sick mothers to find refuge here and then build our own lives. At the time when leprosy was raging, our village was a beacon of hope and comfort, contributing to its continued expansion.
With around 3,500 inhabitants, the village of Pekuk in the Thiès region is second only to Mali in terms of population. Cheikh Diakhaté is one of the village's sons.
Le village de Pekuk, c'était une léproserie.
The village of Pekuk was a leprosarium created in 1914 by the Senegalese administration. At the time, it was intended to quarantine people with leprosy. The former patients who lived there got married and had children. For example, my parents were affected by leprosy, and that is here I was born. They raised and guided me well, helping me become the person I am today.
Ils m'ont amené à l'école, ils m'ont bien encadré et jusqu'à devenir aujourd'hui ce que je suis.
That's all for episode 0. We have taken an in-depth look at the story of social reclassification villages in Senegal. Stay tuned for our next episodes, where we'll continue to examine different aspects of this fascinating subject. Thank you for joining us.